Noswaith Daniel. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Mates Online. This is a pretty historic evening because for the very first time we are bringing Mates onto Facebook Live and onto YouTube. It's so good to be with you. We've got a great event lined up for you over the next 45 minutes. Really pleased to have Gareth Pope, our area coordinator from Swansea, joining me. We're going to talk about some foundational stuff in life. We're going to talk about why we do men's ministry. We're going to talk about why we want to share the hope of Jesus Christ with everyone that we meet. I've also got my mate Chris. Chris is a guy that I get up at the crack of dawn most Fridays for, and we go together for a swim in the sea. It's pretty chilly in the winter, and obviously we can't do it at the moment because of lockdown here in Wales. But what we are going to be talking about tonight is we're going to be talking about lockdown, we're going to be talking about faith, we're going to be talking about how we do life. Guys, the point of tonight is to have a lot of fun, a lot of banter, but also to go a bit deeper and to encourage and inspire and just to equip every one of us to become the gospel men that we know God has created us to be. I have a quote that I've been mulling over the last few days. It's, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Well, I believe that as gospel men who hold to the truth, but do it with kindness, love and compassion, there's only one place that we can look, and that is to the words and to the life of Jesus. So tonight, that's what we're going to do. Fasten your seatbelts, enjoy the ride, and please give a big hand to Gareth Pope as we start a conversation about how we do life and why we do what we do in life. We've done some miles together with CVM, but tell me, how long have you actually been a follower of Jesus?
Wow, it's been a long time, John. Yeah. I don't know whether you know, but I was brought up in a Christian home and everything. Yeah. And I was quite young when I felt that I needed to make a commitment of my own. I was just a kid, really, but because I knew the Bible, I knew that Jesus loved me. My parents were wonderful examples of Christians. I remember one evening, my mum was putting me to bed, and there was a picture of a famous painting, The Light of the World, Jesus knocking on the door. Oh, and, my mum had explained to me that I needed to open my life to Jesus. So I was only actually 5 years of age, if you can believe it, long time ago, that I started, I guess, my walk with Jesus. And it's been a good walk and a long walk since then. So quite a long time.
Right. So roughly on my calculations, that means you've been a Christian for about 20 years.
Something like that. Yeah, or just over maybe. Yeah, a long time. Thanks, John.
I don't know about you, but I'd say, I've been a Christian now. I became a Christian when I was 14 years old, so a little bit older than you were.
A little bit.
But, yes. But I've been a Christian now for 34 years.
Wow,
34 years. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say that every one of those years and every day in every one of those years has been a learning curve for me in terms of what it looks like to follow Jesus.
Definitely. And
and it's just that staying. Yeah. It's just that staying in the game, isn't it? You stayed in the game all those years as well.
Yeah. And I've been blessed by having good Christian friends, your parents are a huge influence when you're a child, aren't they? But when you get the teenage years, it's really good to have. We had a good group of young people that we grew up with. So we played football together. We went to see the Swans together. We went to church together, youth group. So we were really well supported amongst ourselves. And there were people in the churches that we used to go to who opened their homes Friday night, in Treborth. We opened our house. My parents did. So there was a great spirit of generosity and hospitality. And it just wanted you to, it encouraged you just to want to carry on going and to help each other. So our mates were great. And a lot of them now are leading churches in Swansea, several of them. So they've actually stuck to the path as well, and really encourage each other. So
that is amazing, isn't it? It's
it's great
absolutely
to look back.
amazing. One of the things I'm going to give a shout out to CVM Swansea now, and anyone who's listening who is from Swansea, get in touch with Gareth and the boys down there, because when we first started this season of the journey that we're on now, was when I came on board as national director, and you guys were the only ones that were doing anything for CVM at that point. One of the things that always encourages me is that steadfastness, that perseverance, just to keep going and not to give up.
Yeah.
And all these guys over the season have been in lockdown now for the last 10 months. They've had to hang in there a little bit, haven't they?
Definitely.
We've had our 20 or 30 guys who have been joining us pretty much every week.
Yeah.
We see those guys standing shoulder to shoulder together.
Well, I think we've all had to hold on, haven't we? Church has been cancelled in many ways. We've had to hold on to each other and encourage each other, and I think it's been brilliant. We've been able to do it, really.
Yeah.
No, just because they were Swansea, I think we started about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And we just met with a few of us guys in Swansea, Byron, a few of us, and we thought, well, what can we do for the men of Swansea to get them together so they can encourage each other and reach out to their friends? So we just started like an informal grouping across Swansea. And then when we saw that CVM were doing lots of things and they had great resources and people on board, we came under their umbrella. Mm-hmm. So we've been under their umbrella for, I don't know, is it 5, 6, 7 years now, maybe? And it's been great to walk together. And the CVM's Cymru now, isn't it? Been great.
It is, absolutely. So we're starting this week Iron Men, which is a CVM resource. The idea behind Iron Men is all about how we mentor each other, not that like I become a mentor for someone else, but that we actually mentor each other. Mm-hmm. We coach each other, we encourage each other, we stand shoulder to shoulder with each other. Yeah. And out of that we forge ourselves, if you like, as gospel men. Mm-hmm. You and I, we bought into this message quite a while ago, and we know that the importance of not being a lone wolf, don't we? That not standing on our own. Mm-hmm. And in a few minutes time, I'm going to be talking to Chris Arkell, who is the guy that I go swimming with every Friday morning, quarter to 8. Yeah. And it's absolutely freezing in the sea every week. Yeah.
Hardcore.
We're in lockdown now, so we can't do it. And I have to say, I'm beginning to get a little bit used to just turning over and going back to sleep.
Yeah. You'll get up there.
But we have to be in relationship with other guys.
Definitely.
How have you found that? Tell us a little bit about the friendships that you've had with other guys in your life, and how. I mean, have you had situations where they've actually literally saved you or just kept you in the game?
Well, I think looking back over the years, they have, but it tended to be in my teenage years, I think. And then there've been a few friends, a few men friends, as we've been in different churches and things. But I just think it's a great gap that exists. I was talking to an elderly man in a big church just a few months ago, and he was saying, I haven't got any men friends in this church, and he'd been there years. And I think sometimes, not in all churches, but some churches can miss out in supporting the guys and maybe the women, but I think the women find it easier to talk with each other and link up, send messages, but men very often stick to themselves. They think, we can do it by ourselves, and can't. But when you get a group together and they start talking, they realize that they're not the only one with issues, whether it's an illness, whether it's financial problems or something going on in the home. We all share issues and difficulties, and it's great, which we've done over the last couple of years, is meeting together and encouraging each other in small groups in Swansea. So I think it's been a big help to me and to the guys who've been coming as well.
Absolutely. Listen, I know some of the guys will be a little bit interested if we can share some of the things that we do to keep ourselves following Jesus, and keep doing what we're doing. I think one of the big things is building strong foundations in our lives, particularly with our relationship with God. And I have to say, I was involved in a conversation the other day with somebody, and they were saying to me, the thing you've got to do is you've got to get up early every morning. You've got to read your Bible. You've got to pray. You've got to start your day as you mean to go on. Get up as early as you can and read as much as you can and pray as much as you can. And I said to them, well, that's all very well and good. And I didn't disagree with them, but I had to say to them, look, I have a son, and I don't know whether he's telepathic or something. I never tell him what time I'm going to set my alarm, but whatever time I set my alarm, he wakes up half an hour earlier, right? And then I can't read my Bible and I can't pray. I can't do that at that moment in time. So for me, I had to step back and say, look, I'm not going to be discouraged by you. I love your heart, but there's no way that I can do my Christian walk in the same way as you do. What do you do on a day, Jesus?
For me, I'm one of those fortunate ones, those blessed ones who's retired. Can't believe it, can you? I know that, but a couple of years now I've been retired. So I am able to get up at a reasonable time. Most of the other people I think have gone to work and things, but I am able to get up at a reasonable time, and I am able to read, and I am trying to be focused. So I did read through the Bible last year, which was good.
Wow.
This year I'm going to try and focus on the Gospels. So I'm reading at the moment through John's Gospel in the morning, in English and some in Welsh as well, parallel with it.
Oh, da iawn ti.
I've been dysgu Cymraeg. And my focus this year is going to try and be, as much as I can, be focused on Jesus. So, for me, I'm in that good position that I can do it. But I guess, if you can find time, you can read things on your phone, can't you? You can listen on your headphones and things. I guess you can find time, possibly during the day, whenever. But for me, I'm in that fortunate position.
Yeah. That's really interesting because we're both in very different places there, and so you're able to do that, and I'm very much that person who sticks a bit of worship music on in that 5-minute gap, or I'll just read something when Kieran's gone to bed in the evening, and it's very much at the moment it's like pulling those precious moments where you can. But the incredible thing is, and I say this to every guy out there who's in this same situation, it's amazing how quickly God can encourage you. In a second. You fire up the right worship song, or you read a verse from the Bible, and it might only be a really short one. But what it does is it focuses us on who Jesus is, and suddenly you can be on fire. So I just love the fact that all of us are in different positions, different stages of life, different personalities as well, and it's great that you're reading the Bible in Cymraeg as well. We're both dysgu Cymraeg, and I have to say, when I do read the Bible in Welsh, and then invariably, because of the stage I'm at with Cymraeg, I have to translate it back into English to ensure that I've understood it correctly. It just opens up a whole new meaning or something like that, which is just incredible.
Definitely.
Just doing it that.
Definitely.
So look, we're both. This is the point, isn't it, about CVM Cymru? We want to see guys gripped by Jesus. We want to see them getting deeper and deeper into His Word. We want to see them loving Jesus and just living their lives like that. But we also want to see guys saying, okay, you know what? I'll step out of my comfort zone and I'll just give a bit of myself to other guys out there, because I know how hard this really is. I just want to finish off this this section of tonight's mates by, let's have a little, let's just share some ideas, Gareth, about how we are committed to passing everything on, whether that is we're passing on our I'm going to say, I can't say this without laughing, but passing on our wisdom to each other, or
well, that's you, John. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I spread it very thin, but or we are an evangelistic movement, and we want to see men come to know Jesus. So we're always trying to encourage each other to share our faith.
Yeah.
In whatever ways we can.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to just speak into that a little bit? What
Yeah.
do you think? How do you think we can best be passing on what God has given to us?
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, sometimes in mates, I've been able to say that this year and the last few years, I've been trying to invest, not just my money because I haven't got much money, but certainly my time. So investing my time into my grandchildren, just as my parents invested into me, and I could see Jesus in them. So, I want my grandchildren as well as my children, hopefully, to see Jesus in me. So I'm investing time in them, and in trying to invest time in other people around me as well. People are going through difficulties, maybe a loss of a relative or something, or various people, because I believe God has put so much inside each one of us. Every Christian, I believe, has been given giftings, experience, all sorts of different things, and so much information, isn't there? We've had so much teaching, and very often, God wants us to put it into practice, not just keep being fed and fed and fed, but to actually outwork what He's put inside of us. So I believe there's so much potential in each of the men who are listening to this tonight. So much, and potential is it's a funny sort of word, because it can be one of the hardest words, I think, in the English language, because potential is untapped. It doesn't always come to fruition, but we have so much potential inside each one of us. And I believe that probably in Wales, there's thousands of men who are maybe just sitting in the pews or in the chairs, perhaps now, who really could be activated, who could be inspired and equipped to reach out to their families, their workmates, their neighborhood, their streets, if they were just given that encouragement. Sometimes we think it's just for the pastor or the vicar or the professional person at the front, but we are all called to be disciples who make disciples. So, I get excited by the idea of encouraging the guys to move in their calling and fulfilling what God's got for each one of them. So that's what excites me.
You've nailed it there, to be fair. It's like, so CVM Cymru is it is a movement where we want to have a good laugh together, and we do have a good laugh together, but we want to build this movement of men right across the whole of the nation, and we want to see those men mobilized, motivated to reach out, and to just to give the love of Jesus to everyone around, and to lead their mates to Jesus. I've quoted this on so many occasions recently, but there's a quote that I've seen knocking about Facebook and social media. I don't know who it's by. I did try to find out, but without any success. But the actual quote itself is, "In a world where you can be anything, be kind." And I just love. I think my vision for what we're doing is heading towards a place where we're talking about forging gospel men. Men who, as I say, they love Jesus with all their heart, and they love the truth of the Bible with all of their heart. But they do this. They share it with kindness, compassion, and love. I love that phrase in Corinthians, where it just says, "Do everything in love." And so that's. I think that's where we land for tonight, isn't it?
Definitely.
over the next 7 or so weeks, we're going to go through Ironman. Guys, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I still haven't really got my head around Ironman, you can go onto cvm.org.uk and you can order a copy of it. It's one of the best reads that you'll have this season, and it'll encourage you, and you'll know where we're going each week. So next week, we're going to be back online on Monday, and we're going to be sharing some more stuff and being even more focused on the message of we are called to be gospel men, but gospel men who are kind, loving, and compassionate. Gareth, it's been great talking to you again, and it's great having you. Great partnering with you on this week, and we're gonna just watch a bit of an advert for CVM Cymru now, and then we're gonna listen to my mate Chris Arkell talking about going into the deepest, darkest, coldest sea here in North Wales.
Right. Diolch, John. Diolch,
Brad. Diolch, Gareth. You take care. Speak to you soon. Hey, Chris, how are you doing?
Very good. John, are you well?
I am really, really good. But I am missing our Friday mornings when we go down and, like the brave warriors that we are, run into the sea and have a good swim.
Good swim, yes. Yes, we do have a swim. And we do enjoy our time in there, but whether the swim is good is another statement altogether.
I think one of the things that we say a lot, don't we, that every time we go down to the seafront, it's sometimes dark in the mornings and it's often cold. The sea is always cold, and we have to overcome that feeling of I really, really don't want to do this, and then we come out and we're alive. How does that feel for you when you do it?
Yeah, the same. And I mentioned this before earlier on that I get in the car, and if my wife's up, she makes some kind of disparaging comment about manliness and driving down and being stupid. And I've got to get ready in my mind for something which I actually don't really want to do at various points of that morning. And you talk about the cold. It's not just the cold, is it? Because in the summer months when we were there and it's warmer, you've got jellyfish. And in the winter months, it's just cold, but there's no jellyfish. So there's no real kind of balmy, warm, delightful, clean, empty of jellyfish water that we ever experience. So I've got to kind of get over that battle, whatever season it is.
It's not exactly the Mediterranean, is it, on the North Wales coast?
No. But it's as beautiful, if not more so.
Indeed. Listen, Chris, wanted to have a chat with you on Mates tonight because there's a bunch of guys out there that are listening to this, and we've all been in the same position, haven't we, where we've been in lockdown on and off here in Wales since March of last year. And over the months that we've been able to do it, whenever you and I have met up and we've gone and we've had a swim in the sea, we've come out, we've chatted about like literally everything in our lives, and then we've been praying together. One of the things I've always been really encouraged by is your take on lockdown and what God is doing in that. Do you want to just share a little bit about how you have seen that over these last 10 or so months?
Yeah, okay. Right, okay. It's interesting because there are times when I've said even how I think God is working in lockdown. And often, I mean, just to kind of put my cards on the table, there's an element of me preaching to myself there. It's not entirely. We're more complicated than we make out often. Humans are more complicated, and I've gone through a range of emotions and experiences, probably just like the rest of you guys who are watching this. But I always thought at the very beginning, God is doing something, and kind of wrestling with the ideas of whose fault is lockdown. Is it the devil at work? Is God doing something? Is it human error? And these kind of theological questions, but they miss the mark a little bit with me, because the reality is this is where we are. That this is the situation we're in, and something's happening. And I still believe that God is in charge, whoever is responsible in that sense for the pandemic. And therefore, I've got to respond to that and see how He's working in my life. So was from the very beginning my view. Of course, that doesn't mean as we've gone in and out of different phases of lockdown, I've not had the same emotional responses of thinking, what is going on? I've had enough. You know, I've got 7 children at home. I've got a ministry and a pretty much nigh on full-time job, and just thinking then, how do I make sense of this? You can see me in a living room here, which doubles as my office. I've got the desk over there and my books over there. I've got my work computer down there, and I've got a church computer over there. And this I'm sitting on a sofa that Lucy, my wife, and I sit, and occasionally we'll have our date night in the same space. And you just think, what is going on? But yet, in that has been quite a magnificent year where I feel a little bit like that journey down to the seaside in the morning when we go swimming, where I've got to choose, what am I really about? What really, really matters? And we've committed that we would go in the sea whenever we're together and the tide's up. And I've committed to a far greater commitment than that in following Jesus. Yeah. So I've got to then have that kind of wrestling match each day, actually. And so the last year has been very much a huge 10-month wrestling match in my mind in how I deal with these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think the analogy of us going down into the sea and, you know, knowing that it's the right thing to do. Yeah. But actually knowing that there comes a point where the discomfort is so much that we are going to squeal like a couple of girls.
Yeah. And you do.
And I do, more than you. But
I'd love to believe that's true. And it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because you've just talked about it's the right thing to do about going into the sea, and you might think, what are these two guys doing, moralizing about going into the sea? It's not that much of a big deal. And on one hand, it really isn't much of a big deal. But it's such an interesting analogy, and we've commented on this many times. As you go in and you face that kind of internal battle, and of course the freezing external battle, and then we sit down and we pray and we talk about some of the battles that we're facing as men. Sure. in our marriages, in our work, in our relationships, and then to pray about them and kind of go through another battle. So it's not a moral issue, but it reflects a dynamic in I think our Christian walk, which is really crucial.
It's interesting that you go there, because this season in Mates on Monday nights, we're looking at Iron Men, and it's all about becoming gospel men who hold to the truth, do it with kindness, compassion, and love. One of the things that you and I were able to do quite early on was to say to each other, we're not going to hold anything back. We're not going to lie about what's going on in our lives. We're not going to try and present ourselves to be any better than we are. And I'm going to say this because I just think this is going to be helpful to some of the guys out there. I remember one Friday morning that you and I met up, and I was having a really tough time. And I started to tell you about stuff that was going on. And you said to me, I remember it clearly, you said to me, John, I know that you've struggled because you don't usually swear, but you have sworn on a few occasions in this conversation, right? I don't worry about not painting myself in a good picture here, but the point was that as two guys standing together, shoulder to shoulder, loving Jesus with all our hearts, but actually being completely real about where we fit in all of this and our high points and our low points, that's been an amazing journey, hasn't it? Just to be able to sit together and actually be really properly and brutally honest about where we're up to and what we're going through.
And I think some of that is key. Sorry, some of the key to that is that decision about being honest, and if you like, giving each other access and the right to say what's going on, and not to then have the right to say, "How dare you ask that question?" And likewise, my struggles in life are probably are different to yours. We're different people. God's made us differently, and I'm actually prone to some introspection and even mild, kind of a depression, a kind of a poor attitude actually towards God. And I remember similar stuff where you said, "You're really struggling with this, aren't you?" About a particular thing we were talking about, and equally, I've given you the right, and I said, "John, be the person to ask me those questions." And to know I've got that has been quite helpful. It stops me then responding, how dare you probe in this area of my life? You've got no right to do this. This is private. Do not access this room, please, John. And it's been great, but it's not easy to answer a question like that when you're sat drinking a coffee early morning on a Friday. It's a hard thing to have to deal with, but it's been a really useful thing. Because of that issue, I think of, what do we want to be? Do I want to be a gospel man?
Yeah.
Do I want to be an Iron Man, to use your language here? Well, yes, I do. I do. But it's going to hurt, and it does. So I'm grateful for that kind of face to face where we've been able to kind of do that business.
Yeah, and I also remember there was a moment where. It was in the very first lockdown, that really brutal. Mind you, haven't said that, this one's felt quite brutal as well, but that first lockdown in March onwards, and we both sat together. So what have you learnt in this lockdown? And I said to you, I've learned that I need to be so much more tender with the people that I love, but also with myself. And I remember coming into that conversation thinking, this is a really noble thing, and I'm gonna share with Chris that I really want to be kind. I just want to be a much kinder person, and I remember you challenging me on that in terms of, what form of kindness are you going after? Are you going after the form of kindness that's just, you're not going to ever challenge anyone, or are you going after a kindness that that means that you're going to challenge people, but you're going to do it with love and compassion at the heart of everything? And so it wasn't even it hasn't even been challenging each other over the negative stuff in our lives. It's been challenging each other over the good stuff, the stuff that we want to do with all of our hearts. So what's your motivation for that? And I think just share a little bit, because that's been my impression of this, but that just two guys together, shoulder to shoulder, how has that influenced you, just in terms of how you think through life and all that stuff?
Well, it's funny. I remember the conversation about tenderness. I don't remember what I said in the same way, and I'm grateful that you even shared that with me, because that's quite helpful. What I do remember is coming away from that and thinking, I'm not very tender, and thinking, I snap at my children. And if you've got children and you're watching this and you're thinking, I'm sat there doing my work at home, if that's what the situation, or you're on furlough, or you're unemployed, or whatever the situation is, it's easy to then think of those little interruptions in your life as kind of, what are you doing? Or maybe I'm just excusing myself. But either way, I remember coming away from that thinking, I need to change my outlook. I need to see things differently with my own children. And these little people that God has given me, kind of loaned me to look after, how am I treating them? And am I being tender-hearted towards them? I then thought of my wife and thought the same way there. I thought, actually, I need to be more tender-hearted towards her. And I think I've become crabby, if you like. And that's not right. So there was a direct challenge there from just you sharing your own experiences. And if you like, rolling over the challenge to me, even though I don't think your intention, maybe it was, but your intention wasn't actually to talk about me.
No, he wasn't.
I did feel the rebuke of God in that discussion. And there's been many like that as we talk about the fatherhood of God. Goodness, as we talk about a kind of a meditative, we've talked about the kind of a meditative response, as in when we hear about God and what he's done, just thinking, wow. And those moments and looking around at what God's made, those have been really helpful for me, if you like, to work on my inner life. And I don't think those are direct challenges from you, but I've heard them as such. I think you get that when you meet with someone and you share your journey. It sounds a bit cheesy, isn't it? But you share your journey and your and your own walk with God with each other, and it just brings out that I need to think about this as well, which has been really helpful. So that's certainly something I would take away from that.
Listen, Chris, we're going to have loads of chances to talk over the coming weeks and months with the podcast and with other forums I know. But I just want to ask one last question, and it's a question I'm thinking of in terms of guys who are watching this thinking, you know what, I actually don't have this opportunity to be that honest with another guy. How do I go about finding this? Do you want to just talk into how you and I master planned dates and how we master planned living in the next villages to each other? Because to be fair, we must have been brilliant in terms of making that actually happen.
Yeah, well, I looked you up on LinkedIn. I found out where you lived, and I chose to move nearby. I thought that'd be really. I needed a friend, and I was desperate to hunt for one. Of course not, guys. Of course not. I met John actually at a conference, a Christian conference or festival, the Gathering over in Swindon, or near Swindon, and I met John outside one of the big tents. And I knew he was involved loosely with Wales, and we had a chat. It was 5-10 minutes chat, and that was really it. And I didn't know then. What's that? 4 years ago, John? 3.5 years ago. Yeah. I had no idea, John, where you were, John. I thought you were somewhere by Chester, I think. And I didn't realise you were planning to move to the village next to mine. So on that front, I had nothing to do with that, and you had nothing to do with that. That's just the way things have happened. We don't go to the same church. We're not part of the same gospel community of people who kind of learning to live together and love God together. And interestingly, we haven't got to know each other and then decided, let's meet up. I think it's happened the other way around. And I think that's a really useful thing to hold on to. What kind of friendships do you want? If you want friendships that are rooted in Jesus and rooted in your unity in Jesus and your friendship with him together as brothers, then start your friendship on that footing. Don't try and build a friendship and then go, right, this is a really close person. Let's see if I can maybe ask them if they want to meet with me and spend some time with me. That won't happen, because you're then trying to change a relationship. Choose someone that you may not even know that well. Choose someone that actually you think, you know what, they're a godly bloke, and I need to meet with a godly bloke. I don't really know them, but my goodness, by the end of a year swimming in the sea every week and laughing and being embarrassed, humiliating yourself as you're trying to pull your wetsuit off, those kind of moments, and then to pray together, that will build a friendship rooted on something far more important than mutuality on the kind of, we're very similar. We're not actually. So that would be my advice to you. Let God mastermind the relationship. Choose someone who's godly, and then invest in that kind of relationship from that point. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and you described how we got together in exactly the way I remember. It was so random, and God was all over it. And I think if the guys, if you're looking for a mate who can be a mentor to you, and you can mentor, coach to you, and you can coach, and you could just encourage each other, as Chris says, just find somebody that you see godly values in, that's living or trying to live, failing all the way, but trying to live in a way that the Bible teaches us to live, and let God do the rest. Chris, it's been great having you on tonight. Diolch yn fawr. It's been amazing just to talk, and to be fair, my heart is just yearning to get back into the sea. So along with every guy who's listened to this, I'm sure we're praying that God does everything he needs to do in each of our lives and brings us out into a new place, a wide open space where we can live and breathe under his direction going forward.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining
You're
us.
welcome. Good to speak to you, John.
God bless you, buddy. Hi guys, my name is John Stockley. I'm the National Director for CVM Cymru. Thank you so much for visiting our YouTube channel. Now, I think it's really fair to say that over the last 8 or 9 months, for so many of us, our lives have changed radically. The way we do things is entirely different in some cases. And that is no different for us as a ministry here at CVM Cymru. But we know that we want to be on the front foot of God's purposes for us as a ministry and for us as a movement of men. Now, over the coming weeks and months, we're going to be creating a whole bunch of new resources. Many of them are going to be completely free. We're going to be setting up a brand new CVM Cymru podcast. We're going to be doing Winning Men online, helping you guys to get equipped, encouraged, and resourced to reach your mates for Jesus. And here's the thing, this YouTube channel is going to become the hub for the majority of our activity. So while you're here, and we are really grateful that you've come and visited this channel, please would you subscribe to it. The more likes we get, the more we're able to do, the more great resources we can put up there here, the more ways in which we can support you. So we would love you to support us as a ministry, to support you reaching your mates for Jesus Christ. So please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you when you come back next. Diolch yn fawr iawn.